Welcome to A Magical Life, Health, Wealth and Weight Loss. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, lead practitioner at Holistic Natural Health Australia and #1 best-selling author. In this podcast, I aim to give you practical tips on how to accelerate and sustain your health, increase your financial, spiritual and emotional wealth, and to look at something that haunts many of us needlessly, weight loss. In some episodes, I'll have guests available to give you even more tips, but in others, the floor is yours. Drop us a line at A Magical Life Podcast on Facebook and let me know what you would like to know more about. Now, sit back and enjoy, because it is time for you to create and truly discover a magical life. Welcome back to A Magical Life. I'm your host, Magic Barclay, and this is your episode 80, Brownies for Breakfast with Lynne Bowman. I'm actually going to get Lynne to introduce herself. She's a fascinating lady, and before I do that, listeners, I've got Lynne on my camera, and there is a sea of pears behind her on her table, and I'm just in awe. They look so delicious. But before we get on to talking about pears, let's talk about Lynne. Thank you, Lynne. Welcome.
Thank you. And it's so fun to talk to you, Magic, from across the world. This is just, I don't know. I like to talk about how old I am because people always want to know. And people are telling me that that's part of the story. So I'm 75 and I'm still completely awestruck that you and I can have this conversation and send each other pictures of ourselves through the internet. And it's a 17-hour difference, which took me some time, as you know, to figure out how to coordinate with you. So I'm talking to you from yesterday in many ways. I'm also talking to you from yesterday in that I had my first full-time job in advertising in 1966. I've been at this a long time, and it's crazy to be kind of from another planet, another time, another space. But what you and I share is that we see what happens to people when they eat well and take care of themselves and think about their health as a thing that they can choose or choose to ignore. And so after a fairly long career in advertising and marketing, I started out with Redken Laboratories, which you may be familiar with. They're all over the world now. They were just a little tiny company in California when I went to work for them in the 60s, and showed up one Monday morning and everyone in the advertising department but me had been fired. So at the age of 21, I was schooled in a very real way immediately in cosmetic marketing. So I had trained to be an illustrator, and I spent time in Europe and back and forth. Grew up, I was actually born in Hollywood and grew up in Southern California. So at the same time that the busloads of starlets were coming in toward Hollywood, I couldn't wait to get out. I didn't want to stay there. So I took a job in the early 70s in North Carolina as a broadcaster, as a weather person with the promise of a news desk, but that didn't quite happen. You know, in those days, we took jobs, we women. We didn't plan careers and plan, you know, all this stuff. We did whatever we had to do to survive. And, you know, still so many of the best colleges weren't co-ed. You know, jobs were listed in the newspaper as help wanted women and help wanted men. So, and when you talk to young people about that now, they go, wait, what? No, yeah, it was a very different world. So, and along the way, I had a marriage or two and 3 fabulous kids, and kept on going in the advertising business. And then in 1996, my husband and I moved out to this funny little bitty town on the coast of California. As an LA girl, to me, the most romantic, wonderful thing in the world was a country town where people knew your name. and they would say hi. I mean, that was just so exotic and wonderful. So we fell in love with this old farm, this old house, and we're still here. And the pears are still here. The farm came with these beautiful fruit trees that had been neglected for a long time. And they're from another time too, sweet like me. And some years you just have these bumper crops. So this is the year that every surface in my house is covered with pears. But great thing to have to give to your friends. We're going to dry them this afternoon. They're healthy. They just feel like a gift. And we also have apples. We have blackberries. And so the defining moment that we talk about in health circles goes back to my girlhood, and that my mother died when I was young. She died when I was 18 of a chronic disease. And I understood then, in that special way that happens to us, that a chronic disease wrecks a family. In the United States, especially, it absolutely wrecks your finances. It breaks a family. If a mother dies, family tends to get broken in so many ways. And she couldn't help. She had a kidney disease that she couldn't help. But as I grew older, I wanted to make a promise to my children that I would never consciously choose to do that to them. And I knew, because I had gestational diabetes, I knew that I was likely to become diabetic. And so I kept asking, do you want to test me? I'm like, no, you're not overweight. You're fine. It's okay. And finally I said, no, I'm in my 40s. Shouldn't you test me? And they did. And sure enough, I was borderline. So as a result of that, I've spent these decades since my 40s working to remain really healthy. And guess what? It worked. I'm healthy and my numbers are good. But my mission, what I really would like to do, is share that with everyone, because typically you're in your 50s or 60s or sometimes 70s, because diabetes, heart disease, these things don't have symptoms until it's almost too late. By the time you feel symptoms, and again, all this, but by the time you feel symptoms, shortness of breath or fatigue or tingling, or you're having foot problems, there are decades of damages that have been done to your body, your internal organs. So I would like people to understand that you can eat your way out of all that. You can eat and exercise and meditate your way out of all that if you give it some time and energy instead of just ignoring it. So my life is a happy one, and I have spent time as a homeless single mother, as many of us, through our journey have. But I've learned some lessons from that too. And I've enjoyed working in community work here in Pescadero, this little bitty town. But my main mission is this new book that I have out now, Brownies for Breakfast, and the subtitle is For Diabetics and the People Who Love Them. And that's a very specific choice, because if you're trying to eat for your health, you need to not have everybody at the table eating different things. You need to have a menu, a system that works for everybody at the table. And I also want you to have, if you possibly can arrange it, people at the table. I don't want people eating alone unless they have to or choose to, really want to. And in the book, Brownies for Breakfast, I talk about how food isn't just food. Food is part of how you live. And you can't just separate, oh, I'm on low carb, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. Your food is ritual, and it's sustenance in not just a physical way. So part of the problem, I think, with the health problems that they call it the standard American diet, the SAD diet, is that people get so attached to their food habits. If your food habit, as it is often in America, driving through, right? Everything is going to Mickey D's or Arby's or these places where you grab a meal and then you sit in your car and you eat it. But people don't want to be separated from their barbecue or from their fried chicken or from their special treats that go back in their family or in their own history. It's a tough sell to get people. I'm telling you, right? You're the queen of this. It's a tough sell to help people change habits.
Totally. And thank you for saying all that. And listeners, as I'm looking at Lynne, I need to tell you not just about the sea of pears on the table behind her, but there's an eclectic mix at this very long table of chairs. And it's very obvious that Lynne makes that food, that family mealtime, a ritual, because there are so many chairs and they're just all different types.
I love chairs.
Yeah, it's just beautiful to see. So that's great.
Thank you. And this is a cool room that I added on to our old house, actually, and it's kind of like an old timey garage, but it's my studio and my playroom, and it's a place where I can have 20 people if I want to around the table, and I like to do that sometimes. And I do have other tables in the house, and actually, they're in the book. Because to me, a table is kind of a holy place. A chair is an important thing. And I talk about, thank you for bringing it up, I talk about how important it is to think about your table and to think about how you sit at a meal and who is with you and what you're asking of them. And I don't know, Magic, how this is it's been a while since I've been to Australia. I want to come back. I love it, particularly Melbourne. Had such a nice time there. And, it feels very much at home. Melbourne is a lot like San Francisco in many ways. And I felt very at home there. But Americans are not asking their kids to do very much these days. They're giving their kids kind of a pass on the whole housework and cooking and all that sort of thing. And we've got 2 generations, at least now, of people who don't have a clue about how to put a table together or how to manage a kitchen or how to do some basic cooking. So in Brownies for Breakfast, I designed it to be something that your 8-year-old could use, or your 65-year-old husband who's just never, he can use it. Anybody, it's simple, it's basic, it's very visual, and I like to say fun. I think it's fun, which you don't usually see in a cookbook, but I have it here. You want me to hold it up? It's definitely a work of love, because I want you to enjoy cooking and eating healthy food. And as soon as you say that word healthy, everybody goes, oh, thanks. I don't think so. And in fact, healthy food is beautiful and better tasting and more interesting. You just have to put your snoot in it and start. You have to not drive through once or twice and try some of this wonderful. The one that I just talked about on my website was Cowgirl Caviar, which is a vegan take on a one dish meal that has every color in the rainbow. It's easy. Kids love it. And, there's some fun in having a name for a dish that people go, oh yeah, I want that. I want Cowgirl Caviar. I want that. Food should be joyful. I know you believe in that too. And I know that happiness is a big part of what you talk about in your health coaching.
Very much so. And in the podcast, I've discussed with many people about the Epicurean Academy, where Epicurus said to the people in his township, if you want to be part of my academy, you have to bring food and you have to be happy and you have to sing and dance. As soon as you start an argument, as soon as you're unhappy or you bring your troubles to the table, you're out. And that's what the Epicurean lifestyle was. It was about sharing positives from your day, about joy, about happiness, and about food being nurturing, not only for the body, but for the soul. So I really love
And
that.
we have a generation of kids who don't know how to talk. They don't know how to have a conversation because they've got their phones. And this goes to, adults too. They're completely stumped when it comes to a personal conversation, because that starts at the table. That you teach that at the table, how to take turns talking and how to pay attention to what the person next to you is doing and all that. The food is part of it, absolutely, but it's the ritual of food. And so thank you. Yes, perfect. And those are the rules here at Old Dog Farm too. No whining, right? We just don't allow whining. We don't. And if you bring something lovely, and if you don't, that's lovely too. That's all right. And I try to always send something away with people, because I feel like we have such an abundance, as you can see from the pears. We also, at a certain time of the year, have blackberries just all over the place. And what a wonderful thing to be able to share with people. So yeah, it's not just food. It can never be just food. Happiness is about being healthy, and it's very hard. You can be happy when you're unhealthy, but it's a lot harder, is it not, than if you're healthy.
Very true. Now, we talk here about health being not just the physical, but the emotional and spiritual. And so we've talked about, the table and being joyous around your food and having healthy food. What else can your expertise do to help people accelerate their health?
Thank you for asking. Because what I talk about in the book, people go, wait, it's a cookbook. Well, yeah, but you can't really talk about healthy food without talking about two other essential things. One of them, this might surprise you, is sleep. If you're not sleeping well, you can't eat well. And if you're not eating well, guess what? You can't sleep well. They go together. It's all part of one system. So one of the most amazing, surprising bits of advice that people get from me, and I get a lot of head shaking, is I advise people to work toward being finished eating at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, latest. If you can do it at 3, better. No eating at night, nothing. No alcohol, no snacks, not even little vegan snacks, nothing. Stop eating at 4 or 5 in the afternoon and let your gut do what it needs to do. Let it go to work. If you continually feed your gut, it keeps going, wait, there's more, no, wait, she's done, no, now it's some chips. Oh my God, okay. It can't manage unless you finish and let it do its work. And likewise, your sleep, the only time your body, any part of your body can heal is when you are in a deep sleep state. And there's tons of research about this. I'm not making this up. And when I learned that, I was really stunned. It's like, I am this old and I'm just now learning that you cannot heal unless you're sleeping. And sleep has become a terrible problem with people because they're eating crap. You can't eat crap and sleep well. You can't eat late and sleep well. And if you're not sleeping well, your hunger will be all off. What happens if you get on a nice schedule of eating basically what you want, assuming that it's decent, healthy food during the day, and then you stop eating at 4 or 5, you will not be hungry. Your body goes, oh, thank goodness, you finally figured this out. It's fine. Another thing that I've learned in my research is that your saliva actually changes its chemistry. So, because people often say to me, don't you want sugar? Don't you? No, I don't. And I'm now a pescatarian. I eat some fish. For a long time, I just was eating vegan. There's a story about that too, but it's in the book. But do I want a pork chop now because I used to love them? no, it just doesn't sound good to me. And that's my body chemistry talking to me. And that's my saliva talking to me because it's adapted. Am I not right? You're the medical expert here. But our bodies adapt to this.
Exactly. And part of the process of digestion is the salivary glands. So you have to see the food, smell the food, and people all too often cook the food, put it in front of them and start diving in. But you actually have to let all your senses take in the food before you even put it in your mouth.
So right. And your eyes, we eat with our eyes too.
Exactly. And when we eat dead food like the drive-throughs, you're not starting that process. So you're not even digesting it from the outset.
No, and of course, the other thing that some people are shocked by is learning that the drive-through food and packaged foods are designed chemically by people who sit in buildings and they engineer these foods for craveability. That's a word in this industry. And they don't care what's in it. All they care is that when you taste it, you'll go, oh, I gotta have more of that. Because they can do that chemically. And so when the ad says you can't eat just one, guess what? They're right. They've done the work. And scientifically, you cannot eat just one. It's designed to keep you eating. So when you start, if you haven't already, and I hope you will, when you start eating great whole food, plant-based whole food, what you find is, okay, I've had a pear and I've had two of the, I've had enough. I'm good. I'm satisfied. And that satisfaction is something that most people struggle with. They don't get to it because they're eating pizza. And guess what? Pizza is the most addictive food you can eat. And I'm not making this up, peer-reviewed studies. Sugar, as you know, is addictive, but pizza is addictive. You can't quit, and you can't eat just one piece. And of course, it depends on the quality of the pizza, but you're probably, I see you out there, you're not eating the best pizza. Right? You're eating that pizza that you can grab in the box or have, someone drive to your house or out of the freezer. This is not the pizza that comes out of the stone oven in a certain place in Italy that you're eating. And
it's
pizza,
funny, Lynn, we actually have a local guy here that is from Italy, the stone oven, and unless we're making our own pizza here at home, we only get Paolo to make it because we can't eat other pizza. Yeah.
No, it's wonderful. But if you have a guy like you do, Magic, who makes beautiful, I'm imagining that pizza also has some vegetables on it and some really wonderful vegetable sauce on it.
It totally does. It has his homemade sauce.
Yeah.
It has fresh vegetables that he's grown or sourced locally. Just amazing. And that's the way food should be. It should be locally sourced, seasonal produce, none of this, kept in storerooms and refrigerators. Like, that's just crazy.
It is just crazy. And because several reasons, I live out in the country, and COVID, another one, I had not been in an actual supermarket in a year and a half. Yeah, everything that we grow our own food, and we have a farmer's market where we buy food. And then my husband would make occasional forays into our closest decent sized town. And there's a health food market there where you get nice things. But the other day I was in a hurry and I was out. And so I stopped into one of these great, huge supermarkets that we have in the States. And you walk in and you walk through bakery for 3 aisles before you get to any other food. And then you walk through the liquor section before you get to any, and then you walk through the packaged snacks. It's like, where are the vegetables and fruits? And what? Well, they're way back in the back there past, I mean, and the amount of cellophane and plastic and paper and stuff, I wasn't used to it. I've not been a part of that world. And it's pretty shocking once you step away and start thinking more carefully about what you're eating and why. And of course, the other thing we always have to talk about is how good for the earth is what you're eating too. Because if it's not good for the earth, then you might not be poisoning yourself badly right at the moment, but you're not doing the planet any good at all. And if you haven't got the memo, please, it's time. We all need to get that memo.
Totally. Now, we also talk about wealth here, and we're talking not the financial only, but the emotional and the personal. We've discussed the importance of sharing a meal with people. So that's obviously one tip to creating personal wealth. What else would you suggest?
Personal wealth, to me, it usually boils down to beauty. Creating as wonderful an environment for yourself and your family as you can, or your friends. People appreciate beauty when they see it and when they feel it. And again, bring it back to food. But when you invite people over, and I learned this as a young adult, I didn't so much learn it as a child, but I realized that when someone set a place for you with a cloth napkin and a candle, you feel very rich. You feel loved and valued and wealthy, because what more do you need than a beautiful table? And it can be very humble. It doesn't need to be fancy. I always appreciated people who could take some fabric and turn it into something, and find stuff off. And I'm still kind of guilty of dragging things off the gutter, painting them and using them. Love doing that. But if your space is small, it can be just as beautiful or more so. We've all been, most of us, in homes that were over large, maybe over expensive. That's not wealth at all. What's wealth is appropriateness and beauty. So what you do in your own kitchen, in your own house, in your own apartment, to make it a great space for you and for your friends and family, that's wealth to me.
Totally. And the final thing we talk about here is weight loss. Now, you're quite a thin person, and I'm a little bit more fluffy, let's say. What would you?
I'm not a thin person.
Okay.
I'm just a person.
Yes.
And people accuse me sometimes of being small.
I'm told all the time I'm short. So.
It's all how you define that, right? I think of myself as huge, but there have been times I gained 60 pounds, for all of you who have had kids, with my first child. And the weight loss part of this magic is when you eat really well. I've lost about 10 pounds this year, actually, because I was being more and more conscious of this time thing that we're talking about. And I was making it just very considerable effort to stop eating at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. I also cut back my alcohol consumption. California wine, guilty. So I cut it back to maybe once a week. And you know what? That's a great way to lose any weight that you need. I don't diet, but if you are eating consciously, and I don't eat meat, I eat some fish once a week, twice a week. If you're eating a plant-based whole food diet, and I don't eat any dairy. Dairy is a real weight gain problem for people. Like many, I loved my cheese, but dairy is not good for you. I don't know what you tell your patients, but
I always tell them dairy is not good. It's so inflammatory, and it's
so
really behind so many conditions.
Yes. So if you are cutting out dairy and cutting down your alcohol, and you're stopping your food intake at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, and you're basically eating whole food, plant-based foods, stuff your face, enjoy, make abbondanza, the Italian, be abundant in, don't worry about eating a little bit, eat what you need. The weight will drop off. It absolutely will drop off. And we talked about sleep, food. The last thing, yes, you have to move your buns. You have to move. I work out with a trainer 3 days a week. So when you say skinny, I want to say, okay, but I'm pumped up, but you can't see it because I have a jacket on. I'm totally pumped. But I highly recommend that. That's a social, fun thing for you to do. I do a lot of Pilates, which, becomes a little bit of a Hollywood joke, but it's a wonderful movement system, especially for a person of a certain age. You don't want to be bouncing around and trying to keep up with the 25-year-olds in a yoga studio if you can help it. So I'm fortunate that I have a little class of other ladies, various ages, but some of them close to my age, and a trainer who is smart and very well trained herself, so she doesn't hurt anybody. So I get to do that in my neighborhood, 2 miles away, 3 days a week. And she kicks my buns. I come away sweaty and tired. It's a real workout, but it's true that you feel immediately better. You do feel better. And if all you can do is walk, then walk. Just do it every day you can. And don't just drag yourself, but really walk, and get a friend to walk. We have a walking group here in town. And if you want to hear all the latest, that's what you'll be doing. You'll be walking with them. And I think a lot of towns have something like that. So I highly recommend it. So those are the 3 things. You got to move your buns, you got to sleep, and you have to eat sensibly.
And listeners will be talking more about the importance of all these things in episode 83 coming up, which is a morning routine and why it's important to have one. Lynne, thank you so much. Thank you so much for coming on. People can find you on YouTube at Lynne Bowman. That's LYNNE BOWMAN. You're also on Instagram at Lynne Parmiter Bowman, and on Facebook at Lynne Parmiter Bowman. People can find you at lynnebowman.com. And on Amazon, they can find Brownies for Breakfast, a cookbook for diabetics and people who love them. Thank you so much for coming on. It's been an absolute blast talking to you.
It's been so much fun, Magic. And let me come back one day, okay?
Oh, please do. Please do.
I'd like to be a regular.
Yay.
Thanks.
Listeners, this was your episode 80 of A Magical Life. Coming up in episode 81, we have the symptoms of mold and what you can do to beat them. And I think you're going to find that quite surprising. And in episode 82, we have Dr. Travis Fox coming to talk to us. So a lot coming up. Episode 83, of course, is your morning routine and the importance of having one. But for now, listeners, thank you for your time. Go forth and create your magical life. Thanks for listening today. Please subscribe to hear future episodes, leave a review, and share this podcast. You can follow us on Facebook at A Magical Life Podcast or at Holistic Natural Health Australia. That's holistic with a W. You can find us on Instagram at Holistic Natural Health or at www.holisticnaturalhealth.com.au. That's where you'll access all sorts of articles, freebies, and more.